Here on June 9th, and tonight there's a work session for Watertown City Council. Mayor Sarah Pierce is here to give us details of a very brief agenda, but some interesting topics with events that are coming up. So good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Parks and Rec, Scott Weller and Jim Scordo, a couple of guys from that department, will be talking with Council tonight, giving some information. One of them is about the 10th Mountain Division Monument, which is in Thompson Park. There was a plaque that was stolen. It was taken, right?
Correct, yes. So anybody who's familiar with the 10th Mountain Division Monument up there will know it has four sides. I believe it's four sides, I believe, and each side depicts a different point in the history of the 10th Mountain Division. So as people will recall, one of those bronze plaques was stolen. So this is a ceremony where we will be replacing that and commemorating the occasion of replacing it, and it also coincides with the Army's birthday, which is Saturday, and Flag Day.
And Flag Day, yeah. So the replacing that plaque, who did that? It's not necessarily the city didn't put the monument there.
It was an effort by a committee, correct? Yeah. Yes, but the city did play a role. The replacement cost was covered by insurance, thankfully, but we were able to work with the original artist to get the actual replica of that part of the monument sent to us, and we'll be placing it on Saturday.
Is that a local person?
No, the person's in Colorado.
In Colorado. Interesting, because the 10th Mountain Division has history in Colorado. So that is happening on Saturday, is it?
Correct, yes. Saturday at 9 o'clock, we'll be doing a ceremony. We'll have a number of officials there, elected officials, Fort Drum officials who will be offering remarks. And it also is happening at the same time as the YMCA Healthy Kids Day. So for anybody looking for something to do with the little ones on Saturday, the YMCA is going to have a number of activities: bounce house, face painting, obstacle course, a number of different exhibitors. So it's going to be a pretty big event at Thompson Park on Saturday.
And if someone's thinking, you know, Fort Drum and why does Watertown have this huge monument in the middle of Thompson Park? It's a gorgeous piece of art, but why is it there? Explain to people that maybe they don't know that connection or the importance of that community connection that Watertown, the North Country, tries to have with Fort Drum.
Sure. So this is something that was done a number of years ago. There was the North Country Honors the Mountain Monument Committee who spearheaded the effort to raise funds to have the monument constructed, and it serves as a symbol of the unique relationship that the city has with Fort Drum. As you know, not every military community is like this. A lot of the military communities throughout the country are pretty insular, where they have their own schools, their own health care, et cetera. We're unique in the way that Fort Drum doesn't have its own schools, its own health care. Many of the Fort Drum families live here in the city, so we are really an example of the military community and the civilian community who have blended together, and we're the better for it.
Harvest Fest is something that Watertown has done in years past in the park, but that's going to be moved, and it's going to be a longer event. So what is Harvest Fest? What goes on before we talk about
where so anybody who's been to Harvest Fest will know that it takes place at Thompson Park, and it's a one-day event, and there are different fall-themed activities. I believe scarecrow contest, if I recall correctly, bounce houses, other activities for children. What we're doing differently this year is we're expanding the event. It's going to be held down at the fairgrounds now. It's going to be over the course of 3 days. It's going to have more of a carnival-like Oktoberfest atmosphere, so it's really going to be something that you can go and spend a few hours at, rides, games. There's also going to be what's called a Volksmarch, which, as I understand it, it's a type of, not like a 5K, but similar. It's a community walk that would take place, which I believe happens in Germany. I don't know how often. It's something that they do as part of community events regularly in Germany. This idea, I believe, was brought to us by our city manager, who spent time over there with his service in the military. So it's an Oktoberfest type themed activity. There'll be other fall-themed activities that'll be happening, but it really is just an expansion of the Harvest Fest that typically is, or in the past, has been a one-day event at Thompson Park.
Is that a September or October event?
That's going to be in September, the 26th to the 28th.
Okay, near the end of it. So that's going to be a fun event that'll be down at the fairgrounds. And then finally on your list tonight, Watertown Local Development Corporation. You have the CEO of that. And some people may say, what is the Watertown Local Development Corporation? That's sort of the point here.
Well, precisely. And as some people may or may not know, the mayor of the city of Watertown serves as the chair of the Watertown Local Development Corporation Board. being that I've been attending these board meetings for the past year and a half or so, I kind of thought it would be a good idea to have the CEO of the LDC come in and do just that, explain what the LDC does, what they have going on now, and having our new CEO for the LDC explain some things that she's been doing differently, some new initiatives that she's spearheading, because I think a lot of times there's talk about economic development, being pro-business, and a lot of times people don't realize that Watertown does have this arm that's doing economic development and business growth and that sort of thing. So I thought it'd be good to have them come in, offer a presentation just to kind of raise awareness about all the good work that they're doing.
Kind of some, and correct me if I'm wrong, but kind of some lower scale development though, right?
Yes.
Because it's mainly a few, well, some of them have been hundreds of thousands of dollars
Some
in
of them
loans.
have been, and some bigger projects that have happened throughout the years, but it is mainly smaller loans, small businesses, and, you know, at the end of the day, I think it's good to just get the word out there that they exist and they're doing these different things. And a lot of times, too, when you have bigger development projects that come in, they are one piece of the team that is helping to foster that business development, working in conjunction with, for example, the Jefferson County Economic Development Organization. So they're part of that economic development team that works to grow business in our area.
Yeah, some startup either eateries, restaurants, bars sometimes go and they get a few tens of thousands of dollars
Correct.
for a startup sort of fund.
Yes.
Money that is paid back.
Yes.
With an interest, I believe,
Yes.
or it's grant money. But nonetheless, that's what that organization does. You know, going back to events, you have block parties again this summer. You
Yes,
probably don't
coming
know
up.
the dates off the top of your
I
head, which
believe
is okay.
the first one, I believe, is the last Friday in June. I think it's the 25th, but people could just check out.
27th.
It could be the 27th, but
It's a
I know
Friday.
the Watertown Block Party organization, they do a good job of promoting that on social
Sure.
media, so if people
But
check
just
that
know
out
that
and
they are
can-
happening
Yes.
again this year for the summertime. Four
Yeah.
of them, I believe, as you head into the fall. There are
I,
four.
I think three.
Three
but,
this year?
But it could be four.
I thought I saw 4 dates, but yeah, and I didn't even think about it to talk to you about here today because it wasn't on the agenda here tonight for you guys at the work session. But nonetheless, look for the block parties, and we'll talk about them at another time. But I think that first one that you're talking about is the last Friday in June. I believe that's the 27th.
I
Yeah.
believe so, yes.
Finally on here, the city manager update, and that reminds me, there's been some talk at your meetings about the city manager and his residents and residents of other city leaders. What is at debate there, and where do you stand with resolving that?
So I don't necessarily think there's any real debate. I think that obviously the city manager had in his contract that he was to be a city resident. The issue is he is not a city resident, as most people know. He lives just outside the city limits. You know, the question, I guess, or the debate, to your point, would be, do we require him to move into the city, or do we allow him to continue to work and live at his residence that he's lived at for decades? I mean, the city manager that we have now is obviously an established member of our community who's been around for a long time. So I think from my perspective, when you're hiring someone who has roots in the North Country, it's more acceptable to allow them to not be city residents because they're already established. They have a vested interest in the area. Would it be nice if that individual would live in the city? Of course, you know, we would love to have more city residents, but when you have somebody who has that level of expertise, the roots in the North Country, I mean, our city manager grew up in Carthage. I think that it's appropriate to make an exception. However, if it was somebody who was going to be moving from outside of the area, I think the expectation would be that if you're moving into the area that you would be a city resident if you were going to take that position. So the issue is we are looking to correct that, and in order to do so, we need to pass a local law. So that's something our city attorney has been looking at and working on. So I think the intent is to move forward with that. The intent is to move forward with that and vote on it at a upcoming city council meeting.
Any other city officials that this
So this is something
challenges?
that I was not aware of, and I don't think my council colleagues were aware of, but under New York state law, there are certain positions that fall under the category of needing to live within the city. So I think, for example, DPW, engineering, head of engineering, and I think there's a couple others, but certain titles are required to live within the municipality. So that is something that our legal counsel is looking at as well and that we will look to address.
Any idea why that law exists?
I don't know the history of the legislation.
Because sometimes these laws that are on the books are so archaic. It's like there's no real explanation. But maybe that's not the case with this one. I don't know.
I do not know the legal history or what the impetus of the legislation is, but you know, it may be that it's one of those more archaic laws that is in place for, you know, a reason that may not be warranted anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it does make them vested in
Absolutely.
the community that they're working for,
Yes.
right? And paying the taxes that
Yes.
are funding the city. So, and an incentive to have people, you know, then reinvest in their own community, in their own
Definitely.
homes. Right?
I mean, I see both sides of it. I think when you have people who, as I said, if they you know live a few miles outside the city, but they're already established in the North Country, you know, it's fine to make an exception for those individuals. If you have people who are, say, you know, they're moving here from out of state and they say, you know, I want to take this job in Watertown, but I'm not going to live in the city. That's, I think, where a line would need to be drawn.
So with the other positions, DPW engineering, you're going along that same line of having a local law to where
We would need a local law to address that.
So you're doing
and
that
that's
with the city
something-
manager. Are you doing that with the other people?
I think that's the intent.
Okay.
Our attorney is just looking at what the best way to do that is, whether you do one piece of legislation, whether you do individual pieces of legislation, so it's still something that's being worked out.
Very good. All right, the meeting tonight, 7 o'clock. It's a work session at Watertown City Hall. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.